we have a new report over at Dropsite News that finds that David Frum, Douglas Murray, Seth Mandel, and Pamela Gross, who is a CNN producer, all in various ways were working directly with the Israeli ambassador to the United Nations while also engaging journalistically with that same ambassador. Frum, in particular, while serving as an editor at The Atlantic and a writer at The Atlantic, where he still is, sent an email 2 days apart to Ron Proser, who was the Israeli ambassador, one, asking him, and we can put this element up on the screen here, can I interview you for a short profile in The Atlantic about what it's like to be Israeli ambassador at UN? That is a perfectly normal email for a journalist to send to a subject or a source. I'd like to write a profile for you for The Atlantic, the journalistic news outlet where I write. Would you be willing to participate in this interview? Wonderful stuff. Less usual is a separate email that he sent. We can put this one up on the screen. This is, I can't even believe it. This is from saying that,
it's believable though.
Saying that he and Seth Mandel, a lot going on here, you might want to pause it and read this if you want, but that he and Seth Mandel, who writes for Commentary, have been working on the draft for a speech for the Israeli ambassador. He says, this version was drafted by Seth Mandel of Commentary, with whom I've been working. The top half is identical to what you read previously. The bottom half is much less pointed about U.S. policy. Is this more in line with your thinking? That's July 31st, 2014. This is right after the 2014 Gaza war. And so then he includes a couple different versions of the speech. Later, Proser responds, we can put this next element up there. Thank you, David. I will look at it and get back to you. So this was the target audience here is UN Security Council. You can look and see whether or not you think Frum's speech writing, along with Mandel's, was up to snuff. Frum, as you may or may not know, it was a speechwriter for George W. Bush before becoming the kind of anti-Trump resistance guy. He famously, or infamously, depending on your perspective, although there's not many who take the former anymore, came up with the phrase axis of evil. That's what he was known for, axis of evil, which somehow included Iran, Iraq, and North Korea, none of which had anything to do with each other.
Our last segment, to the point of manufacturing consent for the Iraq War.
Right, and then the Iraq War brought in a Shia majority that that linked up the country with Iran, but whatever.
Talk about it.
So that's him. We've also got Mr. Doug Murray, Douglas Murray. He writes to Ron Proser as well, roughly, like actually the same day. They're competing to write this speech. Very good to speak earlier. I am passing in here my first draft ideas. It's probably slightly long, and it's possible I have put in some more diplomatic things than needed, but I think I have got in all the points discussed. To be worked on, doubtless. Can we do this in a British accent? We should, right? But let me know what your thoughts are, and I will give all the time I can to helping to get it right. All very best wishes, as ever, Douglas. Ron Proser speech draft.
I don't think I've ever heard you do a British accent.
I don't think I could actually do.
I'm sort of grateful that you haven't tried.
I could do a very good one. So Murray, it gets worse. Like you're like, okay, this is pretty bad. Journalists who are at the one hand covering Israel-Palestine, there's a giant war that just happened. At the same time, they're secretly writing drafts of speeches for the Israeli ambassador. That's pretty bad.
And were they taking money for it? Do we know?
I highly doubt it.
Okay, volunteer.
I would suspect that this is volunteer work. We could find out, but like, Frum doesn't need the money. I don't know about Murray. This feels more like work of conscience.
Yes.
This is from the Dropsite article. At the time, Murray was also providing other services in support of Israel and its military efforts. In November of that year, he wrote to Proser to inform him that he had hosted an event that raised over £1 million for an organization called the Association for the Well-Being of Israeli Soldiers. That organization had been created to provide funds, quote, directly to IDF soldiers and IDF units, created in 1942, before the creation by David Ben-Gurion. In 2015, AWIS merged with another organization now called the Association for Israel's Soldiers. And so Douglas Murray wrote to him about how happy he was about how well the fundraiser had gone, how much money that they had been able to raise for the Israeli military. Now, Murray has never made a secret of his support for Israel.
Right.
But I don't think he's ever mentioned that that is up to and including writing speeches and raising money for the military. We can get into Pamela Gross in a moment and Seth Mandel. But what was your reaction as you were reading through some of this stuff? And do we have the have you been? Do we have that shot?
Have you been to the crossing points?
No,
When were you last there at all?
I've never been.
You've never been?
Well, am I not allowed to talk about it now?
You've never been. These are people who are critical of a lot of media ethics when it comes to coverage of Israel. And that's what I think is particularly frustrating to me. This is a fairly easy thing to disclose. And actually, if you were...
how easy that would be.
But if you're honest about it,
In the profile?
Well, in the profile, yeah, is another question. But people know that you're completely...
Like he wrote that profile. That wasn't just an idea. Like he wrote and published a glowing profile.
I have it up on my browser right now. I've checked Wayback Machine and the archive. There's absolutely no disclosure in it, not even now. So to do that, if you're David Frum, and not disclose that you helped with the speech is completely bananas. And for both of them, they are openly massive supporters of Israel. That's to go further as somebody who's in the media and actually work on a draft of a government speech and not disclose it, and then ever lecture anybody else about journalistic ethics and coverage of Israel is, I just think that is tough to, none of this is surprising. It's just a tough pill to swallow. And I would imagine The Atlantic, though it's edited by former IDF soldier, right now,
Well,
Jeffrey Goldberg.
Prison guard.
Prison guard.
Yeah.
So,
Right, who we called Goldberg, left a voicemail, left a text message. He did not get back.
Nobody gave you a comment on this.
From referred questions to the Atlantic's PR department, which has not gotten back to us.
Right.
Adam Johnson pointed out on Twitter that the same day, or maybe it was a week later. Oh no, it was the same day. A week before this, Frum had accused the New York Times of putting a fake photo of bloodied Palestinians on their news coverage of the Gaza war. A week later, the same day that he was writing the Israeli ambassador sending him a draft of the speech, he apologized. These images do appear authentic, he said, and I should not have cast doubt on them. I apologize especially to Sergei Ponomarev of the New York Times, whose work I impugned. So he apologized to the photographer, not to these bloodied subjects of the photograph, whose suffering he called into doubt. This is the New York Times, Frum defended his initial skepticism, arguing that, quote, there is a long history in the Middle East of the use of faked or misattributed photographs as tools of propaganda, using that old line of, isn't it interesting that I got fooled by this? Pam, do you want to do the Pamela Gross ones too, or you want anything else you want to add to that before we go to Mandel? And Mandel, he's a hardcore supporter. I was like, okay.
Yeah, again,
finding Mandel in the Proser's emails was not very surprising.
I don't think any of it's particularly shocking, but it is, I guess, surprising just from the perspective that, again, as an opinion journalist, they're opinion journalists. They don't pretend to be sort of Sheila the reporters who are just, although sometimes I think the rhetoric goes in that direction, because Murray famously was lecturing Dave Smith for not going to Israel, which was a question of ethics. He was saying, as somebody who talks about this, kind of implying that Smith was acting in the capacity of a journalist or media person, then you should go to the place that you're talking about. So as opinion journalists, I feel like it's really, and I don't know if you've dealt with this before, but it's it's easy to be like, well, I'm open about what I think about this. So, of course I can take this money and do this thing. But I learned from Tim Carney when I was young. He has a full disclosure on Medium every year of places that he takes money from. I do the same thing. If it's a conservative group that you give a speech for, helping the government, that's one thing. And most people don't even disclose that, even though I think they should. But that's one thing. Helping the fucking government of another country.
It's the government.
That's
who you're covering.
holy shit.
Yeah, you can't do that.
That is like, even by the standards of like where journalism and opinion journalism is, that is surprising.
Yes, and everybody has seen the Douglas Murray clip in his debate with Dave Smith on Joe Rogan, where he says, "You haven't been," talking about the crossings. This puts that whole thing in a whole new light, because Douglas Murray then says, "I have a journalistic rule that I do not talk about a place, even in passing, unless I have visited it." That's his journalistic rule. A much more basic journalistic rule is that you avoid conflicts of interest, and that if some exist, you disclose them. So when Murray's talking about having been to these crossings, he went with the IDF. He put on a jacket that said press,
Yes.
which suggests that you are then baked in the ethics of that craft, which means that you are objective and independent. If the IDF wants to send an IDF spokesperson to the crossing, they can do that. He also had himself photographed in the chair where Yahya Sinwar was killed, wearing his press jacket. He did not disclose that he had raised money for the IDF,
Right.
and that he had written speeches, and that's just what we know about.
This is activism, by the way. Like, raising money for the IDF is, you're an activist on behalf of the cause, and then helping the government. I mean, that actually, even if it's volunteer,
Right.
makes you sort of an agent of the government.
Right, so I would say you don't actually get to claim that you journalistically followed a journalistic rule.
Right.
Like that's not journalism.
Right.
That is a thing that you're doing. It is collaboration with the Israeli government. Like, if you are drafting speeches for the ambassador, raising money for them, and then getting, taken on escorted trips to the crossings, you don't get to then denounce somebody else who hasn't done the same thing. Like, he was trying to say that he is a superior journalist and his opinions should be taken more seriously because he had been to this crossing. But now we know the full context of what brought him to that crossing. Secretly doing work for the government and then going escorted by the government. Just because you put on a flak jacket that says press doesn't make you press.
Right.
So yes, was he physically there? Yes. Should we credit anything that he says? No.
Right.
We can put up F6. So Pamela Gross is an interesting character. She's no longer with CNN, but she was a CNN booker, producer. And also, let's do our disclosure here, married to Jimmy Finkelstein, who used to be the owner of The Hill, and The Hill owned Rising, while Emily and I were co-hosts on Rising. So Jimmy we weren't getting paychecks because we were independent contractors, but he was signing our checks.
He was trying to hire us too.
Trying to hire us. And then he sold the thing before that even happened one way or the other. And so Pamela Gross, so dear Ambassador, so wonderful to see you this 4th of July. Thank you for joining us. Clearly, Iron Dome is doing the trick and saving lives. Please, dear friend, let's get it finished. So she then enters into this long conversation, and we can put up F7 as well, with Ron Proser about how she's going to raise money for the Iron Dome. He writes, "Dear Pamela, thank you and Jimmy for a magical evening. You both are the perfect hosts. You and Jimmy are true assets to the state of Israel." Which, if you're a journalist, whether you're Israeli or American, an Israeli journalist would not want to hear that from an Israeli ambassador. You do not want to be told as a journalist that you are a, quote, true asset to the state of Israel.
You really don't.
That's not what you want to hear. No. I'm an objective journalist here. So it's okay. So maybe she's just Jimmy Finkelstein's wife and has some fake job at CNN. No, not at all. In the emails, go read the full story if you want all of Pamela's crazy emails back and forth with Ron Proser here. But F10, this is an email where she is reaching out to book him, which is her job, on CNN.
Makes it easier, actually.
To discuss. Right, yeah. Hey, I'm raising money for your military.
Yeah. Come on the show.
Come on the show.
Yeah.
It's too much. It's one of these stories to me that manages to both be utterly shocking and deeply unsurprising at the exact same time. Like it really is in the sweet spot of hitting both of those
Right.
emotions.
Right.
Like I'm shocked at this, and yet utterly unsurprised.
Yeah. It's shocking and not shocking simultaneously.
You know,
I mean, again,
maybe in post we'll put a little "Have you been" clip.
You've never been.
this is like this is the one of the biggest problems in journalism right now. Like, you are free. Most journalists cannot truly shelve their opinions. I know like a few who genuinely can do it. Maybe they don't have, maybe they're just like politically ambivalent. They definitely don't care one direction or the other. It's just so few people that can actually do that. And yet most journalists still pretend that that's what they're doing. And even if you're in the opinion side, like Frum and Murray, fine. But actually acting or Gross, who I guess she wasn't on the opinion side. She was just doing booking for CNN.
Booking, yeah.
But that is, it's just so obviously over the line. Like, so obviously over the line. And the audacity then to criticize other people's journalistic ethics tells you a lot.
Yeah, truly incredible. That's why I like this show. Like, we've got our opinions. I think my opinions are facts.
Yes.
But I think they're correct. But you know where I am. But I'm not writing speeches for anybody.
No.
Also, where do these guys get the time?
Seriously. Like,
my first response was, no, I don't have time to write your speech. You write a speech, don't you have a whole office?
why were Frum and Murray both drafting the same speech? I don't understand that. Were they having them compete against each other?
Yeah,
Was he just
Prozer's
seeking everyone's advice?
Yeah. So one thing that politicians do, and they do this a lot with donors, but they'll do it too with journalists, is pretend that they're interested in their ideas. Like, what do you think? The effect of the economy is going to be on the midterms, and then the journalist or the donor or whoever they're talking to feels like valued, like the thing that they're saying. Wow, I'm speaking to this powerful person,
Right?
And so it changes the power dynamic.
Totally.
So you can imagine this is just on steroids.
Yeah. Yep.
Where Prozer's like, you guys are just such brilliant wordsmiths. Could you draft some speeches for me? But that's when it really crosses the line, and they both should have been like, well, no, of course I can't do that.
Unless I'm
happy to have a
about it.
dinner with you, and we can talk about how awful Hamas is and how the world is all against Israel.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna draft a speech for you. Like, that's crossing lines that even I'm not willing to do.
Well, at the very least, I mean, so again, like, you shouldn't do it, period. If you're going to do it, you should then tell your audience and your readers that you did it.
Yeah, and then let people say, okay, you know what, this guy wrote speeches for the ambassador that he's now profiling, but I know that he's supportive of Israel, and so I already knew that anyway, so I'm going to read the profile anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, then you've got the full knowledge of it. It would have been even funnier if he was like, the main thing people say about Prozer is his rhetorical flair and his speech-making ability is unparalleled. Almost reminiscent of some of George W. Bush's best speeches.
Positively Frumian.
People call him Frumian.
Yeah, many people are saying.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show, ad-free, and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.